Have you ever tried explaining video games to somebody who's not a gamer? It's really hard to describe video games to somebody that's not familiar with the culture because video games, when you think about it, are a very odd concept. Like trying to explain to, say, an older relative a game like Call of Duty, where it's a first person shooter, you have to explain to them, yeah, you're from the perspective of somebody holding a gun up to their face as you're moving around and shooting people. It's very strange to them. And when you think about it, it's a strange concept. And going further back, looking at games like Pac-Man, where you try explaining it to somebody who's not in the know, so to speak, and you describe it as you play as this little yellow orb that's moving around a maze, eating pellets and chasing ghosts. It comes off as very bizarre. And I feel like with gaming as a whole, there's a certain level of suspended belief, where on some level we accept the fact that these are fantastical scenarios that would never play out in the real world. What alternate universe does Tetris take place in? Where in the multiverse could something like Final Fantasy X possibly be taking place? Like, there's so many little things that make these games hard to stomach in the real world, but we take them for granted as gamers because they're games and we enjoy them. Now, that being said, there is one game from my childhood, from my early childhood, that was so bizarre and so outlandish and so just downright odd that for a long time, I didn't even think it existed. I was bedridden a couple of times as a kid with severe illnesses, and I firmly believed for close to a decade that this game was a fever dream I had had at some point. It was an amalgamation of several different kinds of games and several different angles on the Sonic the Hedgehog lore. That game, if the title doesn't give it away, is Sonic Spinball. Like I said, this game is kind of a weird hodgepodge of several different kinds of games. It's part pinball game, it's part puzzle platformer, it's part Sonic game. It pulls lore not only from the games, but from the Sad AM cartoon. So there's just so many weird things all sort of thrown into a blender. And I think that's one of the reasons I didn't think it was real for a long time. Because when I was a young child, Sonic was my childhood. The Sonic games, the Genesis Sonic games, were the first games I ever played and the first games I ever truly loved. So it felt natural that this would be the kind of thing I would hallucinate about because it was on my mind constantly. But anyway, I got internet access for the first time, so I was able to do research on these old games, and I found out that Sonic Spinball actually existed, and it was kind of mind-blowing. So naturally, I had to seek it out, and I had to play it again. And at the time, I was a kid. I didn't have a ton of money. My parents had long since donated my Sega because I hadn't touched it in close to a decade. But I was able to eventually find it on emulators and play it again. And now they re-released it on the Nintendo Switch Virtual Console, the Virtual Sega console, so I can play it as much as I want. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this game again and just give my impressions on it now as a cynical adult. So, here we go. All right, here we go. Sonic Spinball. Wow, some of the games on here. Echo the Dolphin, Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Streets of Rage. Man, this is one of the best collections of Rystar, Toe Jam, and Earl. This is just one of the absolute best collection of Genesis games I think I've ever seen. They even have flipping Comic Zone. That's a hard game. It's extremely satisfying, but it's also one of the most difficult games you'll ever play on Sega Genesis. My gosh. So this is the title screen, Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, or just Sonic Spinball for short. So I'll show the demo real quick. The music is, gosh, it's probably my least favorite soundtrack of any game in the original Sonic lineup. So in the manual, they talk about how Sonic is flying to this space, or Robotnik's island pinball fortress, and he gets shot down on the way, and then he's somehow rescued by aquatic animals that are also his allies. The manual mentions something about that. But anyway, so this is the first level, Toxic Caves. So again, the story is you're infiltrating this supposedly impenetrable fortress that Dr. Robotnik has built. And yeah, it's basically a giant pinball game. The twist being that you can somewhat... Ooh, that always gave me anxiety, gosh. The twist being that you can always control Sonic. To a certain extent. Which definitely puts the odds in your favor, but it's still pinball, so there's always a certain element of randomness to it. There's always a random aspect where luck is always a factor. So to my knowledge, there are 4 levels, and each level is progressively bigger and trickier. So you're basically playing a big pinball game, but there's also simple puzzles you have to solve. The goal is to collect all of the emeralds, all the Chaos Emeralds, needless to say. This is a Sonic game after all. Oof, gosh, that always gives me anxiety. Well, I just teleported through that sewer grate. Very nice. I don't know if that's a glitch or if that's intentional. Barrel bustin'. So something I do like is the mock-up HUD up on top. Like, that looks like something you would see in a pinball machine from this time frame. So that's a cool detail. You know, they're definitely trying to sell the pinball aspect of it, so they did a good job in that regard. You know, collecting points doesn't amount to much. I believe every 20 million points you get a free ball. You get an extra life, so to speak. But yeah, and when you play a lot of pinball games, a lot of times there are simple objectives you have to complete to maximize points. So it isn't too far off from a traditional pinball machine just on a Sega screen. And honestly, I gotta be honest, this music is kind of racks on your brain after a little while. So this is the boss area. This is one of the areas where you get one of the emeralds. I gotta say, it's not a bad idea. It's actually a really cool idea. It sounds really cool on paper, but you play this game long enough, it just starts to hurt your brain for the level of tedium it has. It's one of the most tedious games I remember as a kid. Ah, gosh. So then same thing here. You have to destroy those, like, worm, I think they're called worm enemies, something like that. To pull that lever so you don't get booted out of here when you take the minecart up. Let's see if I can get up there once. We'll go ahead and try this again. And again, this is where the tedium comes, and it feels tedious because now I'm stuck in this area until I can get the absolutely perfect pinball shot. Which real pinball machines do a really good job of, yes, having a slight amount of tedium, but just enough where you want to keep trying. With this, you're literally stranded in one area until you can get the absolute perfect shot to advance to the next area. And even then, you're not guaranteed to make it that far. So now I either have to finish blowing the barrels out of that pipe, or I have to try to get straight up, essentially, one more time. Use the sewer warp, gives you a quick another shot. And that's one thing I've always respected about the Sonic games is the environmental focus. There's always seemed to be an environmental angle on it, where you have Sonic representing nature and Robotnik representing excessive industrialism, essentially destroying that nature. I honestly feel like the Sonic games have done more for environmentalism than Al Gore ever could. You know, man, bear, pig, and all that. Anyway, I digress. So now let's see if I can get this jump. Some of these jumps are also very tedious. And just like that, all that work is undone. Now imagine being an 8-year-old kid. Like, that's infuriating. Like, it's infuriating as an adult, but imagine being an 8-year-old kid still learning how to manage emotions. Having to deal with that. At least I'm racking up points. Now let's see if I can make the shot this time. Sorry, you need 2 more emeralds. Yep. There's no direction I go, the direction that still has rings. So I'm curious why there are minecarts there. Like, what exactly is Robotnik trying to mine? This seems to represent industrial runoff, like industrial waste. So, yeah, probably digging too deep into it. Now here, if you look at the final emerald, if I can get up there once. There we go. The final emerald is in this green acid, and if you touch it, you die instantly. So what you have to do is you have to hit that circle. There's one on either side. That releases the cork, and then you're able to go in there. Man, that... So just to be clear, what happens is the first time that thing manages to actually grab you, you have a chance of getting out, but then the second time you don't. It kills you automatically. It's a really tense moment, honestly. A lot of times I'll let myself fall down there as long as I'm careful. And there we go. So I can try again from scratch. So I can start over with 0 inertia. So now I just got to get up there. Got to get back up there, which might take me a hot second. Let's see. Now, Sonic magically spawns an ore, and we row over to get the emerald. Isn't that exciting? Now, it's a Sonic game where you're rowing your boat. So now we can access the boss room. Which is harder than it looks. Again, the level of precision required here feels like you have to be a little more precise than if you're playing an actual pinball game. I could be wrong on that, because it's been a spell since I played any actual pinball machines, but yeah. Oh! You know what? I don't feel too hardcore today. Man, 20 years ago, when I was playing this game for the first time, if someone had told me there'd be a way to essentially undo a mistake made in the heat of the moment, I'd have said they were crazy. It's kind of wild, the fact that that's almost standard, like that's expected in modern emulators and modern reimaginings of retro games, like save states like that. It's a cool thought. Again, 20 years ago, I don't think anybody would have ever expected that to be possible. You make a mistake, and like the final level of Mega Man, you gotta start all over. Now for the boss. Music finally changed, praise the Lord. Now that is kind of cool. The first level boss, if you accidentally exit, you have a chance of popping back up. That's not the case in any of the other bosses, by the way. To my knowledge, there are 4 levels. I've never beaten this game. There was a port on Game Gear that I beat a few years back, but it's a lot simpler and it's very watered down. So personally, I don't think that counts. And nothing screams Dr. Robotnik like a scorpion robot with his head, right? That's one thing I will say. The bosses are slightly underwhelming, kind of underbaked in my opinion. Not a huge deal, but everything else, the amount of creativity that went into other parts of this game, I'm surprised they didn't think of something a little better for the bosses. Not a huge complaint, but yeah. So I'm at 14 million points. I wish I can get that in real pinball machines. Now for the bonus levels, which, in my opinion, are really kind of cool. It's like Sonic's actually playing a real pinball machine. You see, like, his face, his eyes twitching around. It's great detail. So we're clear what we're trying to do is those salt shaker looking thingies are trapped allies. Specifically the characters from the Saturday morning cartoons, Sonic Sat AM. So again, they're bringing in the lore from the cartoon. But then you have Robotnik flying around, and Robotnik is clearly based on the original Genesis game's interpretation. Yeah, what the heck. But then at the same time, there's clearly interpretations from the original cartoon, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which, honestly, I rewatched a few episodes on Netflix a couple of months ago, and I had forgotten just how campy that show is. My gosh. Like, as a little kid, it's hilarious. It's like Looney Tunes-style antics set with Sonic characters, but watching it as an adult, it's really difficult to watch just for how campy it is. Like, good grief, the budget was probably non-existent. Can I save these last 2 holdouts? I think one of them is Tails, but I could be wrong. I think Tails might have already been rescued. See, in this... Oh, never mind, I got them all. Cool. What now, Robotnik, huh? Doesn't serve much purpose, just some bonus points, but it's a fun distraction, and it's cool that they did put in the extra effort for a bonus game. Now for the next level, which is a lava powerhouse. I'm guessing this is like where it's like the energy core of this fortress. So now this level, it becomes extremely tedious very quickly, and you'll see why very soon. Ugh. Yeah, what the heck, guess I'll die. Or maybe not. Like the George Carlin line, guess I'll die. Now this part is infuriatingly tedious. What you have to do is you have to hit these cluck enemies, but you have to hit them at just the right trajectory so that you get knocked into this funnel. And trust me, it can take a long time because you have to hit them at a very particular angle. And go grab that emerald. Which is probably the most distinctly Sonic image in the entire game. But then this pipe also, I don't know if it's a design flaw or what, but you have to, in order to get up there, you have to land at a very particular place. Otherwise, you're not going to make it high enough. It's hard to put into words unless you've played this game, unless you're playing it, but you have to go up there and you have to maintain a certain level of speed, and you have to exit the pipe at a certain trajectory, or else you're going to fall back down, like I just did, again. And that's where the tedium sets in. Now this entire level is all based around using these steamworks to knock yourself around through the whole level. And of course getting the spin dash right, which, you know, I guess it's a poor reflection on the design of the game, because every other Sonic game, it feels so natural and organic. Here it feels kind of forced. Just doesn't feel as refined, doesn't feel as fun, for lack of a better word. So now what I have to do is that where those creepy, like, robot bear cub faces are, you have to try to get in there and knock out one of the corks. Doesn't sound familiar, right? Ugh, that music. Not as bad as the Toxic Caves, but still not my favorite. And that's one thing that I wish they would have done, put a little more work into, was the music, because it's just downright, it wears on you after a little bit. So now this part took me a couple of tries to figure out. What you have to do is you have to mash the B button here to get these air pumps to keep pushing you up to grab the emerald. Then you roll back down the pipes and you're back to the start. Just got an extra ball. And again, you can spend several minutes here trying to get the right trajectory to be able to knock yourself up into that chute. It's, again, just unnecessarily tedious. I feel like they could have figured out a better way to do it. I almost feel like, as cool and creative as this is, I feel like this could have been the beginning of the end, because yes, it's a cool idea, but it felt a little underbaked. Just like a lot of things Sega put out around this time, the Sega CD, the 32X, cool ideas, but underdeveloped, and it almost feels as if they weren't thought out as thoroughly as they should have been. You know, I would say Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, I believe, came after this, and to me it was the last genuinely good Sonic game, and then they started to go downhill. Because then after that, you had Sonic CD, which I won't deny is an absolute masterpiece. Oh my gosh, that game is so much fun. Like, that's quite possibly the best out of all of them. Not my favorite, but the objectively best of the classic Sonic games. But then after that, it was really downhill for Sega. Like, the Sega CD was the beginning of the end. So I feel like this could have almost been the very, very beginning of the end. This could have been the first hints at this kill streak that they were on starting to end. This niche that they had created was starting to undo itself, so to speak. Hard to say, though. So now here we go again with the tedium. Gotta undo this cork. See, and hopefully, you know, play through the second boss and show you guys the third level. Again, if I remember right, there are 4 levels in total, which, given the nature of the game, pretty impressive, considering that this is meant to basically just be a giant pinball console. But still, I wish they would have figured out something to make it a little less tedious. That's like the biggest thing. Like, how many times am I going to say this is tedious in this video? I'm going to take a shot every time I say the word tedious. No, don't do that. Bad idea. So now I can get up to the boss, but first I gotta... There we go. Again, having to, like, annoyingly start and stop. Almost had it there. Having to start and stop to do the spin dash, it just doesn't feel as refined as in other games. It feels a lot more jarring, and it's hard to put into words unless you're actually playing the game, but that's the best word I can think to describe it, is jarring. Alright, and here's the boss, which is meant to be a big boiler, I guess. The Robo Boiler. Oh dear, creative name there. Ooh, Lava Man. Do I take damage if I hit him? Let's find out. Got him. Cool. So Robotnik heads inside a boiler. That's not gonna lie. That's kind of terrifying. Like if I were if I were Sonic and I was in this boiler and I suddenly saw like a floating Robotnik head, I'd be horrified. I'd be like, "What is going on here? Am I in hell?" Yeah, I'm in hell. I'm in pinball hell. Man, all the bright flashing lights really take me back to like Casino Night, way back when. Gosh, Sonic 2. That's another masterpiece. So in terms of the actual Genesis games, the games made specifically for the Genesis, number 2 is probably the best. I know a lot of people say number 3 is the best, but number 2 just scratched that right itch. It created, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just such a particular niche that it created. And I'm not even describing it as like it being a cult classic. I mean, it's a classic in the truest sense of the word. Yeah, let's go back. I really don't feel like working my way all the way back up. And again, think about back 20 years ago playing this on the original Genesis. And here we go again. Not having that option, that would have been infuriating. Climbing your way all the way up here just to get knocked back down in a moment. That's a great detail that you see the cracks where the heads used to be. That's a nice touch. Let's see. And honestly, there isn't a heck of a lot else to say. The graphics are very Genesis. Like you look at this game and the first thing that comes to mind is this a Sega Genesis game? Because that's honestly the art style they're going for. I love the detail work in the backgrounds. And to be fair, the graphics are bright, colorful, and cartoony. They very much remind me of a pinball machine from this time. So it nails the vibe of a pinball machine. It just struggles with creating the vibe of a Sonic game. Let's see, now how long will it... Oh, girl's right back. Okay. See, again, the music and sound effects are not the greatest. Honestly, they're kind of gross. Like, they just wear on your brain after a little while. And that's not to say that other Genesis games have the same problem, because a lot of them don't. Like, Sonic 2 has probably the best, my personal favorite soundtrack of any Genesis game. But, like, that overused, like, bassy artificial synthesizer sound that pretty much every Genesis game used at some point is, like, the main focus of this. Like, it almost borderlines on being satirical at some point. Let's see, player 1. Now for the next bonus stage, break his teeth. Ooh, man, that's pretty brutal if you ask me. I will say I'm impressed by the detail work here. You see Sonic's eyes following the pinball. You see his fingers actually moving in the reflection. Like those are some great details. Like they didn't have to go that hard, but they did. So where credit is due, that's cool. Why exactly we're breaking Robotnik's teeth right now? Like, is this GTA 5 and we're torturing him? I don't know. Let's see. Ouch. Can I break his teeth already? Like, how many more hits can this guy's teeth take? Like, honestly, if somebody hit my teeth with a metal ball like that, they'd probably break right away, am I right? One left, can I do it? Oh, no. See if I can do it. See if I can do it. Go, Sonic! And, like, look at the background. Like, it's like he's in, like, a high-rise building in a city somewhere. Like, that's a cool detail. Like, and it's the little extra things like that that you see in the classic Sonic games that really drive home just how much work they put into these games. Ah, gotcha, Robotnik. That's pretty brutal. His entire head disintegrates. Except for his flipping nose. Like, what is that about? And that's about it. I'll show you a couple of seconds of the next level. This is supposed to be the machine. So in the game's manual, they talk about how basically Robotnik is using this fortress to convert all the animals into robots. You know, that's always been his shtick. But this is like a super machine that can do it quickly, and it can do a bunch of animals at once. It's kind of a disturbing thought, actually. But basically, your entire mission here is to sabotage the machine. I think with that, I've had just about enough I can take with this game. Like, one of these days, I might try to will through... Oh, that is a brutal way to go, getting crushed between gears. I'll say it again. This is one of the oddest games I've ever played. Like, the concept sounds like a lot of fun on paper. You know, a pinball game where you play as Sonic and you are the ball, so you can control to a certain extent. Like, that sounds like a really cool idea, at least on paper. But you actually play the game, it feels really tedious because the level of precision required with most any pinball machine, it requires a lot of really precise shots. So you're going to be sitting there for 10 minutes trying to nail one shot to be able to advance to the next stage, and that just wears on you after a little while. It's one of the many ideas Sega had at this time that seemed like a really cool idea on paper, but just didn't play out in the long run. You know, I'm thinking about things like the Sega CD, which, again, cool idea. Let's put discs on. Let's have some FMV. But the technology was just too new, and from a business standpoint, they just didn't think enough into it. They didn't dig deep enough for it to be effective. So it's a really interesting piece of history, just thinking about, like, this is already showing cracks in their business model, so to speak. This is already showing them overreaching, going beyond what they're capable of. And in some regards, it's kind of sad. It's kind of tragic to see this play out. This isn't a bad game per se, but it's a cool idea that feels half-baked. And just look at how many Sega things would come out in the next couple of years. You know, this came out in 1993. You know, the CD and the 32X and the Dreamcast and the Saturn. These were all awesome ideas that just were not executed very well. And this is debatably one of the very first ones that you actually see. So it's a really cool piece of history in that regard. It almost represents a point in time where Sega was starting to overreach, but it wasn't too late for them to back off. And as a Sega fanboy myself, that is truly heartbreaking to see. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Got some more stuff coming down the pike. Got some more Battlefront stuff. I'm continuing with my Rise of the Empire playthrough. And that's all I got for you this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please remember to like and subscribe.